I think we might manage to get going now. Okay, so what I'm going to argue today is that what is called femininity is not a natural component of womanhood, though many people think it is, but the behavior of subordination imposed on women under the rule of men to represent their inferior status. Surprisingly, this subject is very controversial. When the WLM, Women's Liberation Movement, began in the late 60s and 70s, the criticism and abandonment of what was called women's sex role of femininity was a fundamental part of feminism. The word gender was not used back then at all, just sex role stereotypes. It's a fundamental principle of radical feminism that the personal is political. This means that the oppression of women goes beyond the public world outside the home to construct domestic servitude. It also constructs what women should wear, what we should do to our bodies, how we should walk and sit. Women's subordination is signalled through our appearance. Our subordination is printed onto our bodies, which are required to reveal body parts naked and depilated, chests, backs, arms, legs, buttocks, and breast cleavages. Faces should be covered in makeup and surgically and chemically transformed. Currently, women's lips are swollen by chemicals and immobilized by Botox. As when you're watching the television, you see these huge lips all the time, on the most surprising places. So there are many aspects of what is seen as feminine behavior that clearly represent the subordination of women and girls, as all of them do. Many are related to the expression of women's caring roles, or to the way in which women should express appropriate deference to the ruling sex caste of men. Girls and women, for instance, learn to use their faces to show how deferential they are. And so on. They show a constant range of emotions to their masters, such as concern, empathetic sadness, or joy, all with their facial muscles. Some women do it more than others, but I think all women do it, and men do not. Women are expected to smile with gladness when they see men. Thus, men will say to women when they pass in the street, "Cheer up, it might never happen," in order to provoke the smile they think they deserve. Also, women should not look as if they're interested in their own thoughts. Women's concentration must be on men and what will please them. A few months back, I was standing at the checkout desk in my local organic food shop, and my attention was drawn to the interaction between an old man and a young mother. She was pushing a pushchair, so she was already doing 2 unpaid jobs, childcare and provisioning, but she was having to do another. The man was telling her a long story, and she was using her face to show great sympathy with him and occasionally voiced her concern, but basically she was listening. He doubtless gained a great deal from her behavior. He felt better as a man, for sure. His self-esteem was polished.
Kiss the mic. Kiss close.
Polished by her respectful animation. Right? So animated face is a job, and pretty much everybody who's a woman does it. I think we all recognise that would be very difficult to stop. And actually that's why people like women, you know. Women are nice. But it's deference. It is deference. You may say that she did not need to do this. She could just have said, "Hello, Jeremy," and gone on her way. But she's controlled by the guilt that's instilled in women for any lack of deference to and servicing of men, and she may reasonably fear his negative response. She may have been abused for not having feminine reactions in the past. She was feminine, and he felt better for his whole day. Okay? So that's how it works. That's who gains, and that's who loses. Now, I'm just going to talk about femininity and appearance. The feminism of the women's liberation movement in the 70s started with the rejection of what were called sex role stereotypes, with protests against the Miss World contest, for instance. Many thousands of women in the UK, of whom I was one, gleefully threw off the constrictions of sex role stereotypes. We stopped depilating, stopped wearing makeup, we wore only comfortable shoes, we stopped in many cases wearing short skirts and showing naked parts of our bodies, we cut our long hair, we became bold and bare-faced. We did it in huge numbers and with the support of our sisters. And it helped that the fashion of the time was unisex. Extremely gendered appearance was less dominant then than it is now. It's very different now, I think, as a result of the industry of pornography, which has been completely normalized to construct the rules for how women should look, and how women should behave, much more than we're probably aware of. So how women have to be is really, really different now. So the movement to throw off femininity is nowhere to be seen now, though. Women who are drawn into feminism by the crisis of men's aggressive gender identity activism and the threat to women have no knowledge of the critique of femininity and do not in many cases see the rejection of gender identity as having anything to do with them personally. Right? It's something out there rather than how we are constructed that they are imitating. Many feminists see femininity as something harmless. They may see the problem as being only when it's extreme or adopted by men. In fact, as I will explain, femininity is not just an inconvenient imposition. It is the behavior of subordination that girls and women are trained into by cultural imposition, by force, and through sanctions. It is not harmless, and it affects women's ability to respect themselves and other women and stand up for their rights and dignity as human beings. It shapes everything that women are able to do and be in their lives. Femininity and masculinity represent the behaviours of two classes of people under male domination. Femininity represents the subordination and masculinity represents domination. This is about politics and hierarchy, not choice and fun. Neither form of behaviour would survive if women were free. And I look forward to that, but it won't be in my lifetime. I did think it was in the 70s. I thought it would happen. The hierarchy of gender or sex role stereotyping is eroticized to form what is understood as sex and as culture in Western culture. Now, I'm going to look at the fashions of women's subordination, their subordinate appearance. The extent to which women are restricted and objectified in their appearance changes according to the social attitudes to women in different times. In the 1920s, a supposed emancipation of women was represented in a move out of corsets and long skirts and towards short hair. The way women are regarded in a society can be read off their bodies. Bit small. But in fact, I am at the bottom here, and I'm second from the right and fourth from the left. 1959 school photograph. I was, I think, just 12 years old. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is not just because, I wanted you to see me with my little ponytail when I was 12 years old, but because it shows how extremely different the fashion for girls was then. Now, all the girls at the top, who are the sixth formers, they would have been 17, 18 years old, would have long, straight, or sometimes very curly, because very curly is in, ringlets is in at the moment, and hair extensions, horrendous stuff. But those women do not have, those girls do not have long straight hair down to their bosoms or further or whatever that they have to worry about all the time and that gets in their food and is rather disgusting. They don't have to worry about any of those things. You see, they have pretty short hair. So that was 1959. Really, really, really different. So I hope that persuades you that the world now for girls is horrifically more difficult in terms of appearance than it was in 1959. And yet people would probably think the opposite. Okay, so I did have the long hair, and I had the long hair for a long time. Right? I had to get it all cut off when I became a feminist. Okay, so let's take that one down. How do I do that? I don't know. Doesn't matter. You can gaze at me. Now, so that was the situation. What do I do? I have to go on, do I? I can't remove it entirely.
Oh, okay. You can turn it off.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, just press the stop button.
Got it. Thank you. Now, in terms of explaining how the way that girls are required to behave in their bodies, I refer to a Guardian article from a couple of weeks ago. And it was in February. And it provides an excellent illustration of femininity as subordination. It was about a recent study looking at the relationship of school uniform to the level of physical activity in little girls. Right? It says that what it calls restrictive uniforms was likely to be preventing pupils, particularly girls, from being physically active. It found in research from several countries that where school uniforms were less common, girls would do more incidental physical activity, not necessarily formal sports, but running and climbing that might take place in break times or on the way to and from school. The senior author of the study said girls might feel less confident about doing things like cartwheels. Well, of course, girls would be forced to show their underwear at 4 years old. I mean, incredible humiliation, really incredible. How are girls supposed to grow up as equal and self-respecting people when that is what they have to do at 4 years old? Incredible that that is the case. And yet there are probably women in this room who dress their little girls in skirts. So they're going to feel worried about cartwheels and tumbles in the playground or riding a bike on a windy day if they're wearing a skirt or a dress. Indeed, girls might not want to have to flash their knickers. Boys can remain fully clothed in such activities. Boys may retain their dignity. Little girls have it stripped when they are tiny, right? And that matters. That really matters. And who is thinking about that right now? Who's talking about it? Who's thinking about what is done to girls? The terrible physical subordination of girls. The explanation that's offered is mysterious. This academic says, social norms and expectations tend to influence what they feel they can do in these clothes. No. Well, I suppose, yeah, girls should feel happy doing cartwheels in their knickers. But they don't have to do cartwheels in their knickers. Unfortunately, when it comes to promoting physical health, that's a problem. And the activity is crucial to health. And it's crucial to what girls and women will do for the rest of their lives. So the humiliation starts really, really, really tiny. And we need to understand that and stop it. And that probably means no skirts for little girls. Girls should have the dignified clothing that boys have. Why not? Right? Another aspect of women's subordination that's represented in femininity is that women should take up little space. Girl children are trained to keep their legs together. When seated at gatherings, boys may fling their legs around and take up space. It's about power. Feminists recognize this by inventing the word manspreading to describe this behavior in public transport. The powerful have more space than the subordinate. Just think about the design of office space. The largest offices go to the highest level operatives. Juniors may even these days be forced to all be in one room together with no privacy. They're now realizing this is a very bad idea, but for many years that was forced upon junior employees, which is awful for their dignity and for the work they produce. Okay? Because they can't even hear. There are innumerable examples of obvious connection of space and power, and I will give some more as I go along, but this is rarely recognized in relation to women and girls to whom being dainty, keeping knees together and taking small steps is usually seen to be natural. And in fact, transvestites have lots of lessons online. They can pay for courses that teach them to take dainty steps, to keep knees together. And they are actually told it's about power because they know and they love the humiliation and the loss of power, right? Whereas most women who do this don't even know it's about power. I mean, incredible, but they don't even know. The feminist academic Nancy Healy developed a feminist analysis of what she called body politics in a great book of that title in 1977. And she looked at many instances of the differences in the ways in which men and women moved. She conducted experiments in which she got men and women to walk up to each other and stop where they felt comfortable. The men walked straight up to the women and not the other way around, because women have to give men space. You know what happens with children? They don't have any space. People just touch them because they're totally powerless, right? So you understand the relationship of all of these things to power. So the appearance norms imposed upon women represent not just women's subordinate position, but their purpose, i.e. sexually arousing their masters. I understand the appearance norms of femininity as the rules of the harem, in which the women, whose job is to sexually service men, must make themselves sexually attracted at all times, in case the lord and master comes to find himself someone to sexually use for the night, which is what happens in the harem. Subordination Subordination in appearance involves nakedness, and nakedness in women excites their masters, so women must show naked and shaved and preferably shiny legs, arms and armpits, cleavage, shoulders and backs, sometimes butt cracks, etc., etc. Being clothed, especially where others are naked, such as in a strip club, signifies power. Men have power through wearing clothes. And indeed, stripping boys at public schools is understood as being something humiliating. But somehow, when it's done to women regularly as part of the culture, everybody thinks that's absolutely fine, and pleasure, and sexy, and so on. So men's clothes can be loose, women's clothes must be extremely tight, women must go around in a kind of plastic wrap all the time to show their outlines, whereas men can have loose and comfortable clothing. You know what I mean, you see it all the time. So femininity requires that women engage in degrading rituals of depilation, makeup, of perfuming to ensure their sexual desirability to the dominant male sex class. Women are expected to wear impossibly high-heeled winkle-picker shoes that make walking extremely difficult because such disability is attractive to men. They like the fact that it puts women off balance, that it makes the buttocks go up and down, makes the legs look longer, etc. They describe it in great detail in their fetish works, why it's exciting to have women in these shoes and why they get excited to wear them themselves. So it's these shoes, in which hobble women and restrict women, are the cultural ideal of femininity, and revealed in the fact that female newsreaders on all TV channels wear these fetish shoes, so that it's impossible to watch the news without engaging in the degradation of a woman watching a kind of pornography, unless you close your eyes and just listen. And they do this in front of children. The newsreaders wear fetish shoes in front of children who are watching. Nobody is making a fuss about it. I'm serious, I'm serious. Headmistresses in schools wear these shoes. Teachers wear these shoes. They are all modelling this terrible, painful degradation for female children. Nobody thinks it matters. So I will try. Sorry?
Bring back Doc Martens.
Absolutely. Okay, this is me before feminism. I thought you'd like a little chuckle. I did all that. I've got several kinds of sort of eye makeup from, right up to here. I've got long hair. It was dyed mid-golden sable by L'Oreal, which now owns Body Shop. And yes, the shoes have got heels, but I mean they're fairly chunky. I think it's fair to say it's men's trousers, and I think it's probably a men's shirt. I bought all my clothes on the King's Road. Unfortunately, I had slim hips, so wearing all men's clothes was perfectly reasonable. But still, I'm very feminine, and I did all the depilation. I've got all of that stuff going on. Right? Within a couple of years, this I was 19. Within a couple of years, it's all changed, and I cut the hair by degrees. Didn't want to do anything too dramatic at the school I was teaching in. Okay, so let's go on. Okay, this is a newsreader from Britain, Cathy Newman. She's on Channel 10, which is a very good news, better than the BBC really. But the women, and the women sometimes, she is not, but sometimes they wear perfectly ordinary clothes, like a jumper and trousers. Right? But on the shoes, they have to show the fetish. She won't walk in like that. It's on the screen, she has to show the fetish. So she has to read the news, highly intelligent woman, in pain, right? And humiliated. That is the situation. Apparently those shoes are something like £22.99 from Zara or something. They're not expensive shoes. It's not her love of shoes that makes her do this terrible, uncomfortable thing, but they all do it. I mean, absolutely all the newsreaders. Is that true here? The women's newsreaders all do this?
Same in Ireland.
Sorry?
Same in Ireland as well.
Who?
Same in Ireland.
Okay, same in Ireland, yes. Are there any newsreaders here who bounce around in trainers like the men do?
No, it's considered unprofessional.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so women with significant roles in public life are expected to wear this crippling footwear. Heaven forbid that women should expect to have important and influential roles without demonstrating their deference to the males into whose realm they have strayed. This goes for most women politicians, for instance, women musicians in orchestras, other women musicians, singers, often have to be almost entirely naked or have costumes that show them being naked. For women footballers, as soon as they leave the field, they have to put this stuff on, even though they're lesbians and so on. They must be deferential and show that they know their place, crippled, showing naked parts of the body, depilated and made up. And just to show, I mean, this is the top news in Britain, I would say. And it's like this. Let's look at what happens in El Salvador. This is a sports presenter in El Salvador. But it's only a degree of difference. You understand what the object is. The sex object woman has to be displayed for men's excitement. It's a little bit worse in El Salvador than it is for Channel 4 in the UK. But otherwise, we've got a similar theme. I mean, how extraordinary that women have to do that. You know, I was watching BBC News, and there seemed to be a couple of gay blokes on there, one with a moustache doing sport or something, and the one doing weather. They're leaping about and looking fine, you know, but the women still have to do this stuff. You know? Usually there's a sort of heterosexual couple, like for the morning news, and the woman's got long hair to here, possibly ringlets, you know. Okay, that's pretty much as far as I'm going to go today. I would say that I would like us to do something about it. So I would like us to start talking about it. It's not even talked about now. There are feminists, the Daily Mail had a picture of feminists, most of whom had heels like this yesterday in the Daily Mail in the UK. Only 2 had trainers. Horrifying. I mean, that would never ever have happened in the previous wave of feminism, but it's happening now, and it's got to stop for the sake of our girls and for the sake of the future. Thank you.